All right, you guys, welcome back to the channel. It's February 9th, 2024. If I'm not re-uploading this video, I know that helps avoid a lot of confusion. Sometimes people are unsure of whether or not this is a re-upload. So this is actually a live show today, if it's February 9th, 2024. And today we're going to break down an episode of The X-Files that released on the 5th of November, 1993. This was the first season of The X-Files. And the reason why this particular episode is important is because one of you sent me an email and told me I should take a look at this because the episode is called Ice. And it's about an Arctic pathogen thawed out of the permafrost. Now, the air date, of course, is very important because the 5th of November is a portal date. We've already firmly established this. 5th of November date, the end of the Festival of Samhain, and also the date of the New Fire ceremony every 52 years. Interesting how November is the 11th month in the Gregorian calendar. So, the 5th of November in reverse is 5-2, isn't it? 5 and a 1 and a 1, the 11. So, very weird that all this would coincide in this manner. Now, the episode is about a portal being opened into the mind through an ancient virus released from the frozen ice core samples. And it causes people to essentially go crazy and their bodies to be taken over. Now, as you're going to see in the parts of this episode, the virus resembles bubonic plague and rabies. These are two diseases that are mentioned in this episode. Now, remember, spirals are portals, and an ice core sample is drilled with this spiral device. Here it is right here. This is what they use to drill ice core samples. So, we have ourselves a spiritual synchronicity, don't we? The fact that they're trying to scare everybody into believing that this spiral portal, remember, this is the window into the soul, and that this is where the pathogen will emerge, is significant because of this ice core sample drilling device. Now, all of this is confirmed in the episode when Scully is locked into this red door. She's locked behind this red door, and she tries to break through the door with an ice auger. Of all things. And that's because the spiral is the portal. The 5th of November is a portal. Now, the amount of intelligence that it takes to put together an episode like this that is timeless and that keeps repeating these themes over and over again suggests a higher intelligence, doesn't it? Now, before we get into this episode and break it down, I want to show you this scene again from I, Pet, Goat 2, and it's an Eclipse scene. Let me check in with you guys, and I'm going to show you this. Good morning, everybody. I forgot to say good morning. It's Friday, finally. Now, we'll be back on Sunday with some other stuff. Yes, Elle, she wants to paint it black, the red door painting it. Oh, I'm going to break all that down when we get into this episode and what all this means on a spiritual level. But, let's take a look at I, Pet, Goat 2 in this now infamous Eclipse scene from 12 years ago. The very beginnings of this YouTube channel. So, this of course is some kind of Bin Laden-like character with the CIA patch. This has been decoded probably 1,000 times over the past 12 years, hasn't it? But look what happens next. He's summoning whatever this is during an eclipse. Now, I couldn't link this eclipse to the April 8th eclipse that's coming up in just a few short weeks. And I don't want to try to stretch it to link that eclipse, but there is something weird going on, isn't there? Why did Heliofant, the makers of this animation, pull down their YouTube video and their website in 2023 and then upload it back again weeks before the eclipse? Something is going on. That Bin Laden scene with the eclipse then transfers and fades into this scene, an Arctic landscape. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because I believe this is all going to link into this X-Files episode. Now let's watch this scene closely, because what it seems to represent is an electric kingdom. You see the electricity, the lightning sparking off one lone oil well and one lone drop of oil. In other words, electricity replacing oil, and the last drop of oil being pulled out of the ground. And this is where our economy is headed, isn't it? Now, 12 years ago, when we decoded this, everyone thought we were crazy. What do you mean, Casey? They're not going to force us into an electric economy. Well, here's the proof right here. The lone drop of oil dripping off the edge here and into this splash in the water. Now, we had identified this discoloration as structural color. It's a film that's in the oil, right? And it reflects light. It's not real pigment. It's not color. It's light color. They call it structural color. And this structural color is a component of blue-blooded animals. Beetles, centipedes, spiders. So not only does this represent the last of the oil being processed in the world and electricity taking over the electric kingdom, it also represents something else. The pathogen. The pathogen. Casey, you need treatment. Something's not right. You're losing your mind. Actually, I'm not. This is a screenshot from the film Alien Prometheus. And they too were in a cold landscape in which they encountered a lone drop of a pathogen. And many of you remember this movie because this android here, the robot, finds the pathogen, doesn't he? And all it takes is one drop to infect one of the people on the ship so that they could bring the pathogen back to Earth and weaponize it. Here you see the android's fingerprint has the mark on it. The Wayland Industries mark etched into its fingerprint to basically, it's the only indicator that you would ever know that he was an android. If you remember the movie, he actually fooled much of the crew. Much of the crew did not know he was an android until later on. But this was the entire plot of Prometheus. The single drop of a pathogen. So, thawed from the Arctic landscape. This is what they're telling us this pathogen is going to come from. It will likely be a cover story and not real. But let's begin to break down this episode of X-Files after I check in with you guys one more time, and then we'll get going on this. Good morning, everybody. So, Scully and Mulder are called to a remote Arctic research facility to investigate these multiple homicides, and they're trying to figure out what happened. Let's take a look here. Now, you'll remember, this is the same exact plot of the new True Detective season with Jodie Foster. She's a detective called to a remote Arctic facility to investigate multiple homicides. Watch.
They were sent to Alaska by the government's Advanced Research Project Agency nearly a year ago to drill into the Arctic ice. This team of scientists made up the Arctic Ice Core Project.
Arctic Ice Core Project.
Samples they removed contained trapped gases, dust, chemicals. Evidence that could reveal the structure of the Earth's climate back to the dawn of man.
Notice the word dawn. Dawn of man. So, they arrive at the facility to find what they think is a rabid dog. Remember, I kept telling you that rabies would be a component of this.
250,000 years melting away in a couple of days. That's what they were drilling for.
Rabid dog bites none other than the pilot.
Yeah, he didn't break the skin.
Is it rabies?
Bear, you okay? You got me.
So the pilot's name is Bear, and he's bitten by the dog. He's the first casualty in this cascading series of events. Now, you might think this is a stretch, but there's a reason why the pilot is bitten first. Pilots fly in hollow needles. What are you talking about, Casey? Pilots fly in hollow needles. Fuselage of a plane is the basic shape of a hypodermic needle. Now, if this was the only instance in which this happened, I would say I was stretching it. But we've identified several tropes of planes being the carrier. How about snakes on a plane? Perfect example. You see, the way this matrix is created is that there are nested truths. There are things within things within things within things, right? Stacked inside of each other like Russian dolls. And if you can back far enough up to see the trees from the forest, then you can see the entire thing. It's like fractal programming. It's fractal understanding. And God created this world in this fashion, but then the enemy copies it, right? So, of course, a plane is a fuselage of a plane is a needle.
Get that jacket off. Just give me the stuff, I'll do it myself.
Swollen lymph nodes. Symptoms of bubonic plague.
We'll do a blood test. We'll take it from there. If it is rabies, it's certainly not a strain I'm familiar with.
So they capture the dog and they examine it to see if they can determine the cause of the dog's aggression. They look under the armpits of the dog and they find these black nodules. And each of them, the ones that are infected in terms of humans, can develop these nodules as well. So they're looking for this as a symptom. And to me, these are suggestions of the black goo, the graphene.
Look at this. Black nodules.
The ice core somehow got into the men.
Come on, nothing can survive in sub-zero temperatures for 250,000 years.
Remember how the vaccine had to be stored in sub-zero temperatures?
Unless that's how it lives.
Hold still, Bear.
So the pilot, which is Bear, the guy they have pinned down right here, he starts coming down with it as the rest of the group hold him down to remove the parasite. Where's the parasite? It's lodged in the back of the spine.
Hold still, Bear. Just another second. You're gonna be okay. Scalpel. I'm cutting it out.
We don't know enough about it.
It's killing him. Scully, help me hold the skin.
Now, I edited this down to remove the more graphic parts of it, but needless to say, when they pull this parasite out of his neck, the back of his neck, black goo comes out, which confirms our earlier observations. Now, why the repeated movie trope about an organism accessing the back of the neck. Why do they keep repeating this trope over and over again? Well, it's because this is where the Holy Spirit access is. And we discussed this, didn't we? The rear brain. Let's take a look. This is the rear brainstem. And this, you can literally see the image of the crucified Christ on the cross in these stunning images. His head, as you can see here, is the pineal gland. You see his arms stretched out, chest muscles, stomach muscles, arms stretched out, crucified, legs down below, and this is the tree of life, which is formed by the cerebellum of the brain in the anatomy of the back of the neck. Is this why the woman who touched the hem of Jesus was healed? Because this was the life, the tree of life, the arbor vitae in Latin. Jesus' legs then go down and form the rest of the spinal cord. This is the holy place where we commune with the Father and the Son. It's our antenna, our connection. It doesn't have power within itself. It does not have power to where there's some secret way that you can get to Him. Okay? It's a belief in Him. He is the light of the lamp of the body. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eye is single, your whole body will be full of light. If your eye is dark, you'll be full of darkness, is what Jesus said. He was talking about this holy place. You can't clean this to make it more accessible. You can't abstain from sex to make this more accessible. You can't do Kundalini to make this more accessible. This is simply the vehicle, the temple. And either Jesus is in it and you believe in Him, or He's not. You see, Jesus made salvation so easy that even a child can understand it. So there is no secret way. And anyone who tells you there's a secret way is a thief and a robber. So, in the X-Files episode, they're literally trying to show you that the worm, the serpent, has infected the holy place. Let's keep going with this. Because again, this is about the twinning spirits, isn't it?
Was there something there?
You're okay, Nancy. We're all okay.
So they start checking each other over to see if the serpent is in the holy place, to see if the serpent's trying to twin with the temple, to push out the Holy Spirit. And they realize that some of them have been taken over. The darkness entering the lamp of the body.
Mulder, you may not be who you are.
You may not be who you are. And that kind of resonates with me. You may not be who you are. What would be your response? Your response would be, I am, right? And that's what Jesus said He is. I am who I are, or whatever. So, notice how they say so much without saying a whole lot. But notice how every split second of this production is coded with secrets. So, they figure out that the female scientist is the one that's infected. She locks Scully into a room with a red door. And Scully grabs a spiral, a portal auger. She starts beating at the red door, trying to open the portal. Now I'm going to go back into the chat. Because one of you already got the answer to what the red door represents. Let's go in the chat and see what you guys think about the red door and what it might mean. Let this chat catch up here. And I'll give you a clue. The red door is a song. That's about the only clue I'll give you, because many of you are paying attention and you know the answer to this based on previous shows. What does the red door represent? Please thumbs up the video if you haven't already, you guys. I know Fridays are usually, we get about half the crowd on Fridays, and that's okay. People will catch it on the weekend. But what is the red door? There you go. Dr. Frankenstein got it. You're talking about the 1966 song by the Rolling Stones, The Red Door. I see a red door and I want to paint it black. The very song that played at the end of the movie that was filmed in Trump Tower, called The Devil's Advocate. You don't believe me? Go back to the movie The Devil's Advocate, watch the very last scene, and watch the 1966 song play in Trump's 66th floor penthouse. I see a red door and I want to paint it black. Now, yes, J.R. Cleve is correct. This goes all the way back to the Passover. And this is how the devil mocks, doesn't he? The Passover was God telling the Pharaoh in the very last plague that he will take his firstborn. Why? Because the Pharaoh already went after and was going to go after God's firstborn. God already knew this when Herod went after Jesus, right? Going and killing all the young boys. Well, Jesus knew that, or God knew this. And also remember, the Pharaoh had went after and killed the firstborn of the Hebrews, right? So God said, I'm going to go after your firstborn. And if you mark your post, if you postmark your post and lintel, then the angel or God will pass over that house. And this was the very first Passover. A lamb sacrifice for sins, take the blood, paint it on the door. The door was red. Well, what would the Pharaoh want to do? He'd want to paint that door black again to take our firstborn. This has always been about the seed of the serpent going after the seed of the woman. And do you see how all this makes perfect sense now? It doesn't make any sense if you're just reading individual stories and not putting all the pieces together. But essentially, God's very first prophecy in the Bible was that the seed of the serpent would be against the seed of the woman. It's always been that way and will be until Christ returns. So this is what's happening here. Now, the other aspect of the red door and the black would also be the pathogen. Let's go back to our images of the image of Christ in the back of the neck. This is just, I get chills still when I look at these images. I literally feel the Holy Spirit and God being happy that we're sharing this. Because this image is very special. Here's another image of it here. There's the pineal gland here. And the image in the back of the brain. Now, all of this back here in its natural state probably looks red. Here's the cerebellum right here. Now this, of course, is a diagram or a color. This is the arbor vitae, the tree of life. And it sits in the lap of Jesus. Imagine how amazing that is. So we're literally sitting in the lap of Jesus. You know the pictures of the children sitting in Jesus' lap? Well, all that likely were like tropes to kind of tell you the truth, but not tell you the truth, right? Because that's where we're all sitting, in the brain, the back of the brain. And the thing is if this is a reddish color, the black, painting the door black, remember, doors are portals. Painting the door black would mean that the serpent would try to infect this area. Here's kind of a side view of it. But there, if you want to dig further into this, do a search, rear brain stem. That's what you're looking for. Rear brain stem. And you can see all these various images of the cutaway of the rear brain stem. So, painting the red door black also could signify infection. Infecting the natural with the unnatural, with the black, right? See if there's any other good images of this. Now, I used to be able to pull up hundreds of these images, but now the internet has began to scrub these rear brain images of the holy place. Here's a good one here, but see how they've cut the head off? So all you see is Jesus' chest, stomach, parts of his arms, and his legs under the loincloth. Now remember, these are just images. It doesn't, technically, here's a good image over here. This is the classic one that really shows the definition of it all, right? There's his head, the chest, the arms tucked under, and believe it or not, this part of the brain is like the Father, okay? He's over Jesus as he's being crucified, and we've done images of that. I showed you how the inverted brain looks like God sitting in a chair, in a throne, with armrests. Well, that's who's holding Jesus as he's crucified. This is why Jesus said, Abba, take this cup from me. Well, when you invert, everything in the brain's inverted, it looks like a cup. And it switches over right here in this position, in the pineal position, is where everything crosses over, just behind Jesus. Everything crosses over from one side of the brain to the other. This is where the chiasm is, the part of the brain that switches over. From the front of your eyes, your optic nerves cross right here. It forms a cup. These are some of our earliest body code series. We talked about all this, and I showed you images and diagrams of this. Well, that's what Jesus was saying. It is done. The crucifixion happened. It was the crossover point. Handed it over back to the Father. And all of it's written on our flesh. God made flesh. There's multiple levels to this truth, isn't there? Yes, he came in the flesh, but he's also written on our flesh. There's actually verses in the Bible that talk about this. It says that the law is written on tables of the flesh, or brain, or heart, or different interpretations of this. There's some more images of the rear brain stem in varying detail. Now notice how some of these actually anthropomorphize and exaggerate some of these features so that you're not quite seeing the full image of Jesus, right? But other ones are more in proper perspective. So, the truth emerges, doesn't it? Now, let's keep going with this. So, Scully grabs this ice auger, and she tries to break out. And this scientist guy, as he's pinning Mulder down, he thinks that Mulder is the one that's infected with the worm, right? But it's not. He sees this woman has the worm. Wait, is that? No, that's a scientist woman, yeah. So he saw the worm in her neck. He's like, oh, wrong person. Now why? What's going on here? Well, you ready for this? They figure out that if someone's infected with the worm, the way to cure them is to give them a second worm. That's the second shot. Let me say that again. In the episode, they figure out that if someone's infected with the worm, that they can cure them by giving them a second worm. And the two worms kill each other.
Oh my God.
He knocks her off. They try to go after her. Scully with the Auger. Now, De Silva, the woman, the scientist who's actually infected, means tree. Tree is what De Silva means. Unbelievable. So now you know the meaning of the spiral. The Easter egg secret trope that's all over entertainment media. Did you see the X hidden in the room? Many of you probably did. This suggests that the new disease X will be blamed on what they tell us is an alien black goo melted out of the permafrost or from an ice comet or something. But really, it's going to be something that they make in a lab, and the intent will be to replace the holy place, to steal God's spirit out of us. Is this what sinning against the Holy Spirit means? Here's another X on the door. Did you see that one? The door is an X. What the heck? Let's keep watching the rest of this here. Wow. XX right there. Now, let me go back into the chat. Sunday, we will be back with some Coffee Talk headlines. I'm going to show you guys how the controllers even protect people like Snoop Dogg. See, Snoop Dogg's a useful idiot. All right. People like Snoop Dogg help destroy and confuse black people with their identity. Now, the only reason why I tell you that I'm black is because now I can speak from a place of familiarity. Because otherwise people will say, you're white. How do you know what Snoop Dogg does and doesn't do? So I apologize for stating that I'm black, but in this case, I have to say that so that you know that I'm speaking from a place of familiarity. Now, why are the controllers protecting Snoop Dogg? Well, we'll cover that on Sunday. Because I had another very well-worded post deleted by the censorship police because I exposed Snoop Dogg's teeth-rotting cereal that he tried to launch in Walmart under the guise of helping inner-city children afford cereal. And I put a very well-worded post, and it was removed. So I'm going to show you that on Sunday, and we're going to get into some other Coffee Talk headlines. Let's go into the chat for a bit. This is kind of a quick show, but that means I get to spend more time with you guys, right? All right. Wow. Love you guys too. Thanks, Cheryl. So hopefully that all made sense. You guys have questions about any of that? I know that was a pretty in-depth show, but it will help put things in perspective for you. Troy says, I'm white. Now we're even. Do you know X on the Barbie movie a lot shows. Yeah, something is definitely wrong. Benjamin says that's his favorite body code. It's one of my favorite too, and it should be, right? Because it's the center of it all. Notice the two X's. There's a good X version and there's a bad X version. The good X version is Abba. It is Jesus passing his sacrifice back to the Father. It is done. It is him coming to earth and becoming a man. That was an X as well. Coming in and going out. Now, in literature, they call this a chiastic literary format. In other words, if you were to take the name Abba and write it in an outline form, you would realize that A, B, and then BA is the telling and the untelling of the story. So, we all know how Roman numerals work and writing a general outline. We all learned this in school. And you'll write a Roman numeral, and then under that you would write an A and then a B as you list all the things under the Roman numeral. So the very name Abba is an X. If you think about it, it's going in and coming out. But that is the holy, sacred X, isn't it? It's a good thing, because without God coming to earth as a man to save us, then we would not be saved. It's a portal, him coming here and then going back. Right? And this is what the true, deeper meanings of the cross is. You see, when Jesus carried his cross up the hill, it looked like an X. When it stood upright with him on it, it became a cross. He undid the curse. He undid the mark by coming through the portal to be here with us. It was perfect, wasn't it? And so what's the enemy going to do? The enemy is going to make a dark side version of that. All the things that you're listing here. X factor, the X eclipse, and the X disease X, and XXXX. It's all about the enemy trying to hijack God's holiness and goodness. And this is why the enemy tries to bring to bear so much chaos against God's people, especially trying to show things like this. Yes, the IXXI. Now, yeah, Nicholson was kind of the first one to really talk about that. Let's talk a little bit about that since we have a little time today. IXXI is 9/11, isn't it? And this is all Nicholson's work, okay? So I'll just preface it by that. IXXI is 9/11. Well, we went through a portal, didn't we? Because everything went from IXXI, IXXI, ready for this? And then 19 years later, we went to XIX. Do you see what happened there? Do you see what happened there? The I's went into the center of the X. What am I talking about? XIX is 19, COVID-19. There was a transformation there, a portal. And this is why I kept telling you guys, we went through a portal. Every one of these events is a portal that we go through, these worldwide events. And this is what I mean when I say that. We don't literally go time travel or go through a portal. It's the world changing on a spiritual level. That's what I mean when I talk about a portal. Okay? So, if you haven't already, thumbs up this video. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about before we pop off of here? Yes, Eclipse X. I forgot to mention that X as well. That's the most important of them all. WrestleMania 19 was in Seattle, and the Space Needle was featured on that poster. Thanks, Tara. Now, there's no need for fear because it's already done. Jesus already came. And so, we're good. Right? But the rest of the world needs to wake up. We're good. But what about all the people that are still asleep? That's what our job here is. It always has been. To preach the gospel and also to expose the enemy. What about the 5th in November? All right. Okay, you guys. Well, I think that I'll pop off of here. Yeah, Super Bowl's coming up. I'm sure we'll look at the halftime show like we always do. Give our perspective on it. I can imagine. Are you ready for this? I'm going to make a prediction here. Well, not really a prediction. I don't like to say that word. But I'm going to say that the Super Bowl will have some X symbolism in it. There will be some X symbolism in the Super Bowl halftime show. That's just something that, that I think might happen. Okay. So we'll see if we're right. And wouldn't that be a trip if, like, the halftime show came on, it was just X's everywhere? That would be a trip, wouldn't it? So we'll just have to wait and see. All right, you guys. I'll see you guys on Sunday. Much love, everybody. Take care.